Vlog number firsteen, October 10th, 1708, day 9. So today I wanted to talk about something that's rather foundational to one's reality, and that is perception. And perception is essentially how we view reality, but it's how we view reality that what makes our reality. And I'm going to talk about, at least basically, what makes up perception and pointing towards areas that can be altered as long as there is conscious awareness of those areas. So basically, perception is a chosen view, or perhaps you could say a lens that we choose to wear that dictates how we perceive reality. It shows how we look at reality and how we understand reality. It's interesting because there's so many different ways of looking at the same thing. A rigid perspective will say, this is the only one. And of course, there's other ways of looking at things in reality. It's like, well, okay, but what about this? So, for instance, the environmental problems going on. Some people don't want oil pipelines to be run in the U.S. because they think it will damage the environment. On the other hand, if shutting too many of them off, then what's going to happen to the economy that relies on such oil? And then of course the guys will be like, oh, well, just use green energy. And because it's green. And then another perspective will say, well, do you understand how much the green energy relies on fossil fuels, especially wind turbines? And again, all these back and forth, it's almost like a ping pong game of just perspectives going at it. A lot of this is, of course, fueled by knowledge. Unfortunately, also information, which is not quite knowledge. A lot of people think they know something, but in reality, they just picked up information from the television or the internet, and they convince themselves they know something. Knowledge is intimacy, and being intimate with the subject at hand. Once one is intimate with it, then they actually know what it is. Whereas if we read it on a book and don't actually experience it in real life, or don't really know how it works in real life, it's just information. That's just being, parroted out by people so they can make themselves look good, such as their ego, which is talked about in video number 12. But yeah, that's really a lot of the part of the problem in this world is just people have rigid perspectives. A lot of them are just like, I'm going to have this rigid perspective because my ego, again, going with the ego, is going to take this perspective and it says this is the only correct one. And the rest of them are all wrong. That's a mark of an egotistical person also, by the way. So what makes up perspective? Knowledge is one of them. Just went over that. Unfortunately, information, but also habits. Now, habit is basically a cyclical process that lives within the unconscious mind that helps us get through our lives or day-to-day routines. It's also a way for the mind to build itself a set of wheels so that it can get itself off the ground and do what it wants to do in life, which has its pluses and minuses, but everything comes down to intention here. Does it intend to use those habits to help other people, or does it intend to use those habits so that the mind can satisfy its own chemical addictions to the point where it essentially eats itself alive? And that's the danger with habits, is that with those habits, if too many of them block the clarity of one's natural state, then essentially they begin to forget what they really stand for and what they really want, and instead they act on the thought forms that make up the habitual fields. And they essentially dig deeper, as if they're digging deep in the ground. They're going so deep that they forget there's a surface, and then the light of the surface just gradually disappears or fades into a small little point. And this is another reason why people get into accidents, actually, is because they get so lost in their habits that, knock, knock, hey, by the way, you're not your habits. Although the actions that, are the result of the thoughts in those habits, yes, we're responsible for that. However, you got to be aware you're not your habits. So a lot of that happens as well. But again, yes, once the habitual fields begin to be broken into and move past, and one realizes, hey, wait a minute, I am not this habit. I need to be consciously aware of the fact that this is a habit I repeat every single day, unconsciously, and I need to figure out if this still serves me or not, or I'm just using this to perhaps go into denial about something, or run away from something, or turn my head away from something, just to make my mind feel more comfortable about the reality that I'm in. So a lot of us do that too. But once you go past the habit fields, then it becomes a lot easier to shift one's perspective of reality. Because then it's not so much about concept or being or choosing one's identity, as it was discussed in the last video. It just comes down to, okay, here is a myriad of lenses I could look at life through. Now, which one of these lenses is most compatible with me and my current path at this time? And that's essentially something that is up to everybody. I'm not one to say that one perspective is greater than all the other perspectives. Each one has their own light, so to speak. It's more like a light that refracts through a crystal, actually, because every single perspective has a bit of light in it. It's just a matter of gathering all the lights of the rainbow, so to speak, and putting it together back into the one white light that it once refracted from, as best as we can. And with that, then we can get a more holistic view of how our realities work. And it's not so much about just one of these colors of light going through the crystal. And we start to realize, oh, wait a minute, we're all more related than we think. And every single perspective has its merit. And it's about just acknowledging that merit rather than saying, oh, you're wrong, because of some ego wanting to make it show. So there's some food for thought there about perspective. There's obviously a lot more to it than that. I just want to do a very basic rundown of how I see perspective in the world, and also about habits, because people can easily become enslaved to habits. It's very important not to be enslaved, because then it leads to complacency and non-action and so on. Slavery to comfort is really the bottom line there. Okay, well, that about sums this video up. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.